Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being the show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legends of Tomorrow, a great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This was such a great episode. I was so giddy, smiling the entire way through. I kind of went into this episode already knowing kind of like the reality shifting aspect to it, because I'd already seen like promotional material like way before now. But I didn't realize it was going to be multiple shows the way it was. I only saw like the the Star Trek parody. That's all I saw. So I didn't expect the other shows as well. So that was like a really neat surprise though. But I love like how it starts off, like, because I was like, oh man, where are we starting off? And like we see someone typing, trying to change stuff. I'm like, what is that all about? And it's Mona. I'm like, Mona's back. I was like super pumped by that. But it's like basically the fates have created kind of what they considered, I guess, a utopia, which is interesting because I'm like, why do utopias always look so damp and dire, like very post-apocalyptic in certain regards, not all regards, but I guess it's their version of a perfect world, because basically they want people to, because they are the be all end all for like everything, like they were beforehand. But it's like, oh, it's your time to die, and snip. I wonder, was it Home Dude's time to die simply because he was talking mad shit about like, oh, this isn't the way things are supposed to be, because like Mona is writing scripts, basically rewriting books. They're like getting rid of everything that was like, oh, someone rebelling against something. It's like, oh, someone being rebellious against slavery. So-and-so was someone who followed the rules. Ding, it's acceptable. And, Mona's going and she runs into Gary. Gary's like, wait, you look familiar. Do I look familiar to you? They call me they call me Gary, but some people call me Crazy Guy. And she's like, get in my way, weirdo. He's like, they also call me that too. I was like, oh, was it breaking through a little bit? It's so interesting. But part of me was thinking like, oh, they left Gary like that because they wanted to have someone kind of play the fool. Like, oh, let someone. That's what I read at the time was kind of what I mean by that is like what I thought at the time was like, okay, they needed someone to kind of play the fool and just like, yeah, he's one of them, so we'll let him live while we're not immediately cutting his thread. But we kind of find out the reasons why later on. But Mona's watching TV, and first up is Ultimate Buds. Lo and behold, it's Zari and Behrad, and it's like, hey, he's back. And I like the audience applause and everything. I love that it's a sitcom. Basically, it's a Friends parody. And then there's Nate walking in, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna be Robin. He's an actor, so he got a role, so it's like he's supposed to be like the Joey. I know I'm pulling out these Friends references, considering the fact is I'm not that well versed in Friends, but I know that wasn't his whole thing wasn't Joey an actor? Not unless I'm full of... Yeah, he was an actor. That was kind of part of his story, if I remember correctly. Regardless, the fact is he's like, yeah, I'm Robin Hood on a show called Arrow. I'm like, yes! I was like, the inside jokes. Yes, I love it. The inside jokes and references. Okay, so I was like, that's super dope. Which is interesting because when you break that down, it's even more fun because there was that episode they shot a commercial. Sarah was Supergirl. Gary was the Flash. And you had Nate being the Green Arrow. I believe that was last season, yeah. But nevertheless, it's a whole bunch of shenanigans ensuing, and it's fun and everything. And it's just like, because even Mona being like, oh, I love Behrad. He's such an idiot. But nevertheless, Zari remembers who she is because she acted like the totem ends up activating. The Zari from the original Zari ends up possessing our Zari, well, the current Zari's body, and she's like, Nate, and he's like, whoa, like, I always wanted things to be between us, and he's leaning in for a kiss, but she walks away. He's like, man, I'm always missing kisses and stuff like that. But obviously to everyone she sounds crazy, but she's like, wait, no one else is hearing that? Like, no one is hearing these, like, this laugh track and everything like that. And so it's up to her to kind of break, basically she ends up breaking the fourth wall, because it's like, wait, you see this door? It's like, where does that go to? No, I don't know. I even love her boss showing up. I was like, is that someone? I don't think that's someone we're supposed to know. I think that was just like a random character, but I almost halfway expected. I thought her boss was going to end up being one of them, like one of the legends or something, but it ended up not being the case. But Zara uses her power and breaks down the door. I cannot remember that movie. It's something with a cable, or I think that's a name, like something in the title is named Cable. There's a movie I really liked when I was growing up. I think it was from the 90s. It might be from the 80s. But it's a movie that basically this kind of pulls from, where it's like, oh, people jumping through different TV shows and movies. I could have sworn, like, if I remember correctly, it wasn't one of the movies they ended up going through was like Wayne's World or something like that. I want to say, I can't remember. Like, because there's a lot of things that have kind of made a parody of that. Because I know there's like a Fairly Odd Parents movie. I mean, yeah, that's kind of a parody of that. I don't know if this movie I'm thinking of is the original movie, but it's one I grew up with. Regardless, tangents and all that. It just reminded me of that when you saw like the static door and stuff like that. But them going through, ending up on High Castle Abbey, a parody of Downton Abbey, and I love that Constantine's a butler. Even Zari pointing out like Mr. Darkin, considers a master of the dark arts and stuff like that. A butler, okay, and so. And I like that basically they become like cognizant of like when they're, because now they realize they're no longer in the same show. They keep the same personality, but to be fair, that's kind of their own personalities, but it seems like they're still their characters while realizing like, oh wow, we're actually in another TV show. And then Mona's realizing like, oh whoa, what's going on? They realize they're in a TV show and everything. Because at one point Zari had mentioned Mona's name. She's like, whoa, did she just say Mona? And then, like, at one point she mentions Gary's name, and Mona runs, finds Gary, and brings him over, and he's like, wow, you sound crazy. She's like, no, these people in the TV know us. And the thing is, Astra's here, and she's with her mom, and it's like, oh, I didn't realize it until much later on when they were pointing it out, like, oh yeah, like, this is basically them getting everything that they wanted last episode. But regardless, I just thought that was so neat, because Bayrod's supposed to be her, like, who she's supposed to be engaged to. And I love him being like, because obviously for her, she's like, oh, I want adventures and stuff like that. She doesn't want to just be married off. And he's like, you know what? He's like, you're a diva. And she's like, ooh, what's a diva? He's like, a diva is a female version of a hustler. I was like, I love that they did that. I was wondering how he was actually going to define diva. And it's like, of course, you use Beyonce lyrics to define it. I love that. But also, it seems like John, even though he's in the show, knows that he has magical powers, which is interesting for there to be a period piece parody of like Downton Abbey, but with magic, at least some form. I would have loved to actually see what that show was like in the full scale of like him balancing like, oh yeah, all this period and social class stuff. Also, I've got magical powers. Like, how would that have balanced? I don't know. That would have been so interesting. But Zari's like, all right, I need you to get me out of here and get us out of here. And they're like, he's like, okay. And like Nate's there being like, hey, if you don't do it, we're going to reveal you to everyone. But he's like, all right. But like, you have Astra being like, I want to go on adventures. I want to go to London. I'm a diva. And Bayrod's like, sorry, that's 100% my fault. So it's kind of like, all right, let's go. And, it's like, we got to find our way out of here. And John's casting a spell. He's like, Astra, please no. But they all get teleported out. Then they end up on what is, once again, Star Trip, the Star Trek parody. And it's so good. Obviously, Katie Lott's doing her best William Shatner impression. I love it so much. And it's actually very befitting, obviously, Ava being like because that was always who Ava was beforehand. Because obviously, like, as the show's going on, Ava's become a lot sillier, but she's still kind of like, in a comedy duo, she's still kind of like the straight man in the situation, because she's just kind of like, the fact of the matter is she was always just kind of like by the books, by the rules person. So it's just interesting when you've seen how her character has developed into kind of like having this, still kind of maintaining that, but obviously still being contained with all the wackiness that is Legends. But I love the fact is that, it's like she's basically the Spock of this world. And so they're like, yeah, like they both, because it's like, oh, we come in peace. And then it's like Sarah being like, yeah, now let's kill him. Now die or something like that. And so it's just very interesting. And literally, I love her at one point when the ship gets attacked and she's like, no. And it's like, you shouldn't be reaching such an octave. They're just androids. And it turns over and it's one of the dudes revealed to be an android. It's like, oh, okay, good. Never mind. Because at first it's kind of like, I love that Nate was about to push the button. No, it was like, I think Bayrod was about to push the button, but it's like, no, don't do that. Because they're like, oh, it's a fake show, so let's push a button. No, nothing's going to happen. And it's like, no, don't do that. The other one's like, why not? Presses the button, and then it ends up destroying, well, at least killing a lot of people on their ship. They end up bringing them over. And obviously, Zari's trying to explain everything, but Ava being logical like she is basically explains like, oh, you say that we're part of the same team and everything, that, oh, you must have been trapped in this like period piece pocket dimension. And then Zari's like, Ava, I love you, because it's like, of course she'd be the one to kind of figure it out. Granted, not 100% there, but she kind of got it. So it's like, all right, so let's go from this show to the next show. And the next show ended up being Mr. Parker's cul-de-sac, because Gary and Mona went to Clotho Productions to kind of interfere because they ended up finding out it's a computer that's basically generating like the story. I think you could probably see there's a deeper line. Like you could look at that as kind of like an underlining thing of like, oh yeah, like that it's just an automatic thing happening. Like part of me thinks you could, if you really want to stretch for it, you could read so much into that, but I'm not going to. Like it's not worth taking a deep dive into where my head was going with that whole thing. Like the underlining. Regardless, tangent, sorry. But like they're basically like obviously when they end up on Mr. Parker's cul-de-sac, which I love that they brought that back. I was like, hey, that's so cool. They could have. I like that they brought that show back because it's like I wonder is that show gonna like be like the new Bebo, because Bebo's like become the mascot of this, not even just this show, like this universe. You'll randomly see him a lot more on Legends, but you'll see him in other stuff too. But it's like that's ever since that thing made its first appearance, it's literally been everywhere. So I'm wondering, is that what Mr. Coat, like this is the second time this has popped up this season. And when we went to this universe, I was like, are we going to see Mick here? Because of course we're going to see Mick here. We have to see Mick here. But then everyone's like different things, like Sarah's a police officer, Zari's a doctor, so on and so forth. It's really interesting. So basically, it's like for Zari, it's like she doesn't know what to do next because it's like she wishes they all remember who they really were. She's like, we're the legends, you know. It's like, you know, first and foremost, all we are, we're misfits that try to, you know, do the whole hero thing. And I'm like, thank you. That's literally the legends in the sum of a bunch of misfits who found their way around together. And so it's like the legends remember who they are one by one. Everyone's remembering everything. Even Behrad, he'd be like, wait, am I dead? Am I alive? I should be dead. I'm literally dead in every timeline. It's like, no, but you're alive now. Nate and Zari, it's like, it's his Zari. She's like, you know, I knew you'd find me. And it's like, oh, they're reunited and everything. That's so cool. And then it's like, Behrad's there with, you know, Zari, but it's like, wait, but you're not my Zaris. And then even him having to, he's like, yeah, okay, there's some complicated feelings here because it's like, I'm you know, okay, I'm glad you guys are, you know, together and everything, but I'm processing my best bud making out with my sister who basically lived the same life as me in a different timeline. It's like, that's so weird when you think. I don't think I ever read too deeply into it, but it's like basically everything Zari went through over the course of season 3 and 4, Behrad went through the exact same thing, with the exception of the whole him and Nate became best buds instead of boyfriend and girlfriend. So it's like, that's so weird. And it's like, that has to make you feel extra weird on some level. It's like just the timeline thought process behind that is just so interesting. So obviously they kind of realize that Charlie's the one that put them in there, and obviously Charlie shows up and she's super pissed because she basically created this world to keep it. At first you're kind of like, obviously she created this place to keep them alive, but at first I'm like, why is she so upset about this whole thing? Because that's why at first I was kind of like, no, shouldn't this be like what you want? Like, oh, like now it's time to get them out and get ready to fight your sisters. But it's like, no, she wants to. I'm like, wait, did you have a, oh, you like, is this going to mess up your grand plan or something? It's like, no, Charlie didn't actually have a grand plan. I think that's so interesting because even later on, Gary's like, he's like, I thought, you know, Clothos, he's like, oh, I thought you were punk rock. And that's so interesting that like she conformed to this whole thing because she cares about her friends. Like she didn't want none of them, like they would have all died. So it's like she made a deal with her sister. She'll bring them back to life, but they'll be part of the television. This way they can act as a means of propaganda to keep every like human in line, you know, under the rules of like eating mush, eating food with no flavor. And I even love that like that's constantly a bit like the whole mush thing. Even at one point when you at the beginning of Ultimate Buds, there's like an ad for mush. It's like, yeah, it's the blandest. I love that. But regardless, it was but you know, obviously you have Charlie starting to like rewrite the script and having Mr. Parker come in and he's singing a song about basically burying your feelings. I'm like, wow, that's literally the opposite. It's supposed to be all about expressing yourself, but you're telling them to bury their feelings. I'm like, it's like, right, and she's snapping them back into each of their respective TV shows. And so it was really interesting because it's like, you know, once again, like I didn't realize it until they pointed out, but like everything they wished for last episode, Charlie actually made it come true for them because in this world, obviously Behrad is still alive, and you know, for Zari, so that's kind of the main thing that she wanted. And obviously, like because OG Zari kind of had a thing for Nate, I think because of that, that's kind of even more reason why Charlie put those characters together. But then like Sarah and Ava go to that world, a star trip, because it's like in that world they never die because they never lose. And it's like because Ava saw Sarah die, and it's just like obviously she doesn't want to go back to reality because it's like that happened, you know, I can't go through that again. And I love that line from Sarah. It was so good, where she's basically like, life is both beautiful and terrible. You basically, sadly, you can't have one without the other, because that's, you know, there's good things, there's good experiences in life and there are bad experiences, but they're all life. And like not only focusing on the good in life and not only having one of the two isn't really living. You need this isn't the full experience of life, you know? And, you know, like I said, life is this beautiful thing that, yeah, it comes with the bad, but, you know, you have, you know, the bad makes you appreciate the good to a certain extent. I know that's kind of like you could spend hours kind of debating that whole thing, but I still just thought it was kind of an interesting like way to kind of get Ava to kind of realize like, yeah, like there might be bad out there, but at the same time it's like that's life. That's just how life is, and this whole thing isn't real, you know? And even the whole thing with John and Astra, because her mom's alive in this world, but it's like, well, that might be not your real mom, but she's like, I still gotta try. And so John lets them, you know, they go back to the, you know, High Castle Abbey, and she's with her mom, but her mom doesn't remember everything because she's just a character on the show. But John is like, the fact is, you were my greatest sin, like trying to save, you know, use your soul as a bargaining chip to try and bring your mom back to life. He's like, yeah, like the angels and demons can be assholes themselves, but he's like, I'm the biggest one for doing what I did. You were my biggest sin and regret. So if you want to stay here and it means being with your mom, like, because obviously all he ever wants is her to be happy, and it's like, if staying here to be with your mom will make you happy, and he's like, I'll go back to playing the role of the butler, which I loved earlier when he remembered. He was like, oh, that bastard Charlie, she made me a butler. Ugh. He's like, I feel so violated. I also love, we find out where Mick has been. I was like, so where the hell is Mick? Oh, he's the bad guy on Star Trip. And I love it. They're like, all right, get past all that stuff. You know, he's like, all right, good. I'm here for revenge. And he's flipping his hair. I was like, Mick, I love it. And then, you know, it's kind of like a thing of almost like a Nightmare on Elm Street type of thing. You die in a dream, you die in real life. So it's like, if they die in the TV shows, will they die in real life? So Charlie has no choice but to take them out and pull them out of and she even says it herself, she's like, I canceled their show. And Mick came out, he's so pissed. He's like, how dare you bastards do that? He's like, I love Star Trip, I love my hair. I was like, oh, poor Mick. But nevertheless, Zari, Behrad and Nate were able to get out because all they had to do was basically shit on the show, and basically everything that it represents is like, oh, it's supposed to be a bit of propaganda and everything, so all you have to do is fight against everything, kind of make everyone that's watching, you know, no longer want to be a part of that. Like, no, it's like, wake up, people. It's like, and Nate being like, yeah, I like mush, but that's that's not the point. But the fact of the matter is, they're trying to wake people up to kind of like, we're no longer going to be served as like propaganda, so we're trying to wake people up. That's how they plan on getting out of the show. I also like that it did show like the camera turned for it to actually be an audience in the crowd. I thought we're just going to be like a voices audience, but it's like, no, there's actual people behind. Like, it broke the fourth wall a minute, so like, yeah, there's a camera and everything filming all this. So I thought like, I even love Behrad being like, how did we not notice all that laughing before? But nevertheless, so they got released in that part. Then there's the whole situation with Astra and her mom. Her mom gives her a ticket to London. It's like, the fact is, I heard what you had said to Behrad, and the fact is, I don't want to be the reason to hold back your happiness. But she's like, Mom, like, I don't want to lose you again. She's like, I will always, be with you, but I don't want you, like, you got to go out there and live your life. Because sadly, Astra got caught up in the situation she did because she was always that little girl still missing her mom, and that put her in that position of like, she needed to find some way to survive, and all that, she couldn't just let go of it. Like, she has an opportunity now to finally just live her life and just kind of finally let go. It's like, so I think it's that thing of like, she's probably gonna have to give up on bringing her mom back. She probably will. Maybe, I think this might be her fully accepting that. I mean, it was part of the whole thing of kind of escaping the show and everything, but I think because it's much like Sarah. Sarah had to give up on getting her sister back. She technically got her back, but obviously it's a very different version of her sister. It's not the sister she knew. Laurel from a different Earth, so different circumstances, but still, she had to give up on, bringing her sister back. So it's a situation of like, okay, so she's like, fine, John, get me out of here. Like, he knew that he always planned on this being, like, she's like, all right, you smug bastard, just get me out of here before I change my mind. Because he always knew it was going to turn out like this. He had a feeling. That's why he kind of accepted, because he knew they weren't going to be staying. He knew the circumstances were going to lead to this. Like, she was going to have, like, a epiphany and stuff like that, like character growth. And so they got out. Everyone got out. Everyone's hugging. It's like, yeah. And Bayrod's like, yeah. So we were, like, almost engaged right there. Like, for a moment there, she's like, yeah, good thing we're not brainwashed anymore. And part of me was like, Astra and Bayrod, now that'd be interesting, especially considering like they set it up to almost be like, oh, a Bayrod and a whole Bayrod and Charlie situation. But now it's a situation of like Zari being like, the fact is that they're kind of idiots because they ruined everything. She's like, everything I did was to protect you, like, it was the only way I can keep you alive. So it's a thing of like, it's like a two wrongs. She thought, it's not like two wrongs make a right type of situation. She thought like, at least I'm saving my friend's life, no matter what the world becomes, whatever it has to be. She kind of submitted to her sisters as long as it meant like protecting her friends. But it's like your friends wouldn't want to go down without a fight, So for her to kind of, but it's like, but it also shows like, Charlie, who kind of didn't care about them before, well before now, obviously, but over the course of everything, over the course of the many seasons, like over the last season and this season, she's grown to love and care about this. They're her family, they're her mates. So obviously she would do anything to protect them. But that kind of was what I was talking about earlier, and that explains why Gary was alive, because Gary fell into that category. So it's also neat to know, like, oh, like obviously Charlie considers you a friend and everything too. So I think that's pretty dope. But nevertheless, it's also the thing of Bayrod being like, yeah, but what about my Zari? It's like, what happens now? It's like, well, don't worry, because she's like, I can rewrite things, I can make things better. She splits Zari's thing, and now it's like two Zaris. There's Nate's Zari, and then there's Bayrod's Zari, and it's like, well, there's two. It's like, he's like, whoa, I have sisters now? And then like, Sarah's like, what happened? And then you have Ava being like, Zari is a Zari clone. It's a clone thing. It's like, well, you would be the person who. It's not necessarily that, but I guess it's the easiest way to kind of explain it, because it's like, it's kind of bad because you have to have the clone person explain a clone thing just happened, even though that it's a lot more technical than that. But still, it's almost befitting too, because her playing the logical character, she had to kind of put it in that like way as well. But it's like, hey, but even then, it's like, yeah, they got what they want, and it's also interesting because that's what I thought. I was like, I had a feeling that might be the storyline they go with, like basically splitting the two Zaris, making it, because also that leaves the other Zari to, Bayrod Zari to not only like, that leaves a situation where you could be with Constantine. But now the thing is, will that last forever though? Because like even Bayrod's like, every timeline I'm dead except for, so like, what does that mean? And now that there's two Zaris, will that be a permanent thing? Who knows? But obviously for them, they don't want to be a part of this. Like, even if stepping outside means facing off against the fates, they're like, then we're going to do it, And obviously it's so interesting because like Charlie kind of lost that fight. Like, it's almost like she did lose that punk rocker part of herself that was always ready for a fight. But it's just like, she feels like they can't win this battle, but that's the Legends for you. They've come out on top against everything, anyone they've ever challenged. Side note, I meant to bring this up at the beginning, and I hate myself for not doing it. I love that the intro changed. Because they did the exact same thing with the Legion of Doom back in Season 2. They changed the intro to Legends, reflecting that the Legion of Doom kind of had taken over and stuff like that, So it's very befitting to kind of have another world where it's like, oh, this world was changed because the bad guys basically won. But still, like, obviously Charlie's like, I can't protect them anymore. They're kind of on their own. So I think what's going to end up happening, though, they're going to have, obviously Charlie's going to have a change of heart. Like, she can't just sit on the sideline, because like, it's almost a thing of like, you're willing to let the rest of the world fall into what it's fallen into, being controlled by your sisters, just so you can, I mean, granted, by keeping them like this, keeping them docile, you keep your sisters from just straight up murdering like everyone, kind of starting from scratch type of situation. But also, like, in her mind, it's like, I'm protecting my friends, so basically the world has to pay the price for it. It's fine as long as everyone gets to live, but it's still like, you're taking away free choice. And that was always, the that was always, Charlie's thing. She wanted humanity to have a choice, to be able to do whatever they wanted to. And so her to kind of go against that now, it's just because she feels like there's no way to beat her sister. So I thought she went into this having a plan, but it's like, oh, it doesn't seem like she did. Maybe she did. Maybe we still haven't seen, but it just seems like, no, she just kind of goes with the flow just because it's like, all right, I'll help you and everything, but make sure my friend's still alive. Like, that's what I just thought was interesting. I thought, like, Charlie had an actual plan, but, we'll ultimately have to see, because next week's episode is the season finale. I should also note something I've been thinking I thought was kind of interesting, but this could just be me reading too much into it. The fact is that it was Zari that was the one that was kind of the linchpin that basically broke, Charlie's whole television thing. The reason why I find that interesting that it was actually her was because Zari's been in this interesting position where, like, in season 3 she was stuck in a time loop. Granted, it wasn't a real time loop, but it was a fake time loop created by Gideon, but still. And then there's a whole situation of her being the one that ended up changing time and making it so that obviously she didn't become the person she became, changing her entire life and bringing her brother back. So it's like, it's just almost very befitting for it to be her that kind of ends up being the one that kind of, like I said, breaks the spell. So that's, like I said, that's me reading too much into it, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. So, but like I said, I'm very interested to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the season finale. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good